Hey everybody, David Bloom here. In this episode, the Dodgers and Lakers cash cow local sports networks may be on the block. Lawyers are set to talk about settling the Paramount Warner Brothers antitrust lawsuit, though Dr. Mark Ruffalo had some tart words for Oracle's involvement, suggesting he really has no interest in continued employment with David Ellison once this thing all settles out. Nexstar gets a special master. A steady stream of leaks undercut Netflix's extended look at Grand Theft Auto 6. And Disney Plus has some bad optics, killing Wonder Man and that long-awaited Blade reboot. So, Daniel, let's get this started. I think this is really interesting, the possibility that Charter, having concluded the Cox acquisition, that little notice $31 billion job, may spin off the two hugely lucrative local sports, regional sports networks it's run for the Dodgers and Lakers for these last many years, that no doubt about it, financed the Dodgers' primacy across baseball.
Yeah, for those of you who don't recall or weren't around at the time, in the early post-aughts, first in 2012, the organization known as Time Warner Cable signed lucrative deals with both the Lakers and the Dodgers, super long-term deals. In 2012, it was
super long ago, though. I mean, this was like back when regional sports networks mattered still, right? They were still valuable parts. Yeah.
And used to be able to watch the Lakers on free over-the-air TV, the local games. And then they went to...
If you were in Charter, but it's crucial, though, if you were in Charter's footprint.
Well, this was back a long time ago. And then they migrated to what was called Prime Ticket, which is a regional sports network. And then Time Warner Cable took over the rights, and they paid the Lakers $3 billion over 20 years, negotiated when Jerry Buss was still alive and the Buss family controlled 100% of the Lakers. And then a couple of years later, they signed a $8.35 billion, 25-year deal with the Dodgers. And what was interesting is Time Warner Cable and its management were subsumed by Charter Communications in 2016. They're gone. The Buss family, they're in litigation as of last week, but they're in the process of winding down and giving it to Bob Iger and Josh Kushner. Not many of the principals that were around, that own the teams or the channels, are still around, yet you have these deals that, even adjusting for inflation, are prohibitive for the operators. And it leaked last week that before he bolted and sold the Lakers, Mark Walter wanted out. He wanted to just get a lump sum from the Lakers and the Dodgers, or from Charter, and take his team somewhere else. Last week, when they were announcing the closure of the Charter Cox deal, Chris Winfrey, CEO of Charter, said, "Yeah, we're looking for a way out." These are
what would that look like, though? Because on the one hand, Major League Baseball is dying to get all of its franchises into a Major League Baseball run. Right. Equivalent of a regional sports network in some way or shape, streaming service, subscription, you get your team, But the thinking had always been, well, the Dodgers, this thing is just too valuable to walk away. I mean, it is financed that $700 million deal with Shohei Ohtani and, all the rest of the stars that they've accumulated. I mean, who's buying? That's the real key. I mean, Sinclair doesn't have any more money to buy it. Like, who is it going to be?
Well, I mean, it just adjusts the conversation around regional sports networks and how Major League Baseball, NHL, and NBA teams play their local rights seems to change every day. And a few weeks ago, we were talking about, the NBA is probably going to manage its own situation for local rights. It'll have most of its teams, not all of its teams. The Knicks, the Lakers, they have these like fabulously lucrative local deals that they don't want to give up for some league sanctioned product. But if those goes away too, I mean, the true end of regional sports networks just kind of happened.
Yeah, I mean,
suddenly all at once. So
you would have. I mean, I know that the Yankees still have the Yes Network, which has, I think, the Islanders and a couple of other local teams also in it. And that one has a small portion of Amazon ownership. And then I can't remember who's their partner with otherwise. Was it Sinclair or somebody else? I think it was Sinclair back in the day. And
Yeah.
that one maybe sticks around, but because it's the Yankees. And Chicago launched with, I think, Amazon also, the Marquee Network. And the Cubs are actually, and I say this as a Cardinals fan, the Cubs are actually relatively successful in recent years, but they have a hardcore fan base of self-abusers who apparently love watching a team never quite get there. So maybe there'll be a market for that. But I mean, other than that, like nobody's really on the old system at all. This is the last vestige beyond the Yankees, the last vestige of a different era, right?
Yeah, sports rights accelerated so fast and the pay TV ecosystem decelerated so fast that it just doesn't make any sense. As we've discussed before,
Yeah,
Comcast
it's really been crazy.
won't
Crazy.
make a channel unless it can put it on its premium tier. It doesn't want to make its base level customers pay for it. So these are channels cost,
Right.
Some markets $15 per subscriber.
Right.
It's a direct to consumer business at a time when there simply aren't there just not enough direct to consumer fans. And the
Mm.
Charter, I'm always glazing them, but for good reason. They're pretty sharp people. Charter tried to make it work. They gave it to their broadband only subscribers. I mean, I got the Lakers channel the last couple of years. It was kind of hard to get to it, but nonetheless, I had access. I didn't have to have the TV product for it, and that's a heck of a
Right.
value add. And then I pay kind of a hefty broadband bill, but it rarely goes down, and I get regional sports networks out of it. So,
Right. Right. You get Lakers and Dodgers. Now, I just don't know what this looks like. I mean, the money still attached to these doesn't suggest. I mean, I guess what you could do, and this probably isn't that different than some of the conversations going on between the NFL and some of the networks. You could do just a lump sum get out of jail free card, right? Payout.
right.
Maybe that's what Iger and Kushner are thinking about with the Lakers. But Walter may still need some cash. That problematic investigation that's apparently set off his rapid turnaround, his rapid flip, his out of character flip of the Lakers, involves actually a total of $21 billion by the most recent reports I've seen. $21 billion in problematic, possibly undisclosed loans between insurance companies he owns and other organizations he's connected to, um, private credit organizations he's involved in. And 21 billion, trying to unwind all that and make it all pretty, it's a fair amount of change, even for Mark Walter. So maybe this is another way to extract cash, or
Yeah.
was another way to extract cash. But now,
Say what you will about the SEC right now, the FBI. I mean, these are you call them strict, but they're fair. They're tough. They just they just want everybody to play by the rules.
right. The SEC, I think, has been able to maintain its reputation better than Cash Patel, Cash Money, and his custom inscribed bottles of bourbon that he gives people.
Yeah,
Uh,
like Mark Walter,
but
we're going to learn more over the coming years about all of this.
we will learn more about this in the days to come. More will be revealed. More shall be revealed.
So just to
But
sum
it
up,
is interesting because this changes this. But I think it's interesting that this happens because it has implications for two of the biggest sports in America too,
right.
and for the leagues and two of their premier franchises, the two-time defending champions in baseball, a relatively recent winner of the championship in the Lakers, and its second most winningest franchise of all time. I mean, that's interesting by itself, above and beyond a financial back and forth, of local sports networks. Like, who even talks about those anymore?
I don't know.
Certainly not at Sinclair.
8.35
But
billion divided by 25 provides you with what?
400 million a year.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
350 million a year,
And other
which
teams
they've
are
had.
making as low as $10 million a year in the local rights that get like jettisoned from the
Oh yeah,
mid small market teams in Major League Baseball. And some payrolls are like at 70 million, and the Dodgers are at 400 million, and they're just getting obscene amounts of local TV rights from now until 2013. They're only halfway through that deal. They got 12
yeah.
of it, and it doesn't look like it's going to make it to the end. So, and there's all sorts of collective bargaining that's changes that'll probably happen. Us Dodger
Well,
fans enjoy this year.
yeah, enjoy it. This is your last year. Yeah, the 340 million. I just did the math. 340 million a year will pay for a lot of farm system improvements and et cetera, that allow you to do deals. And without losing track of this, again, what happens to the Dodgers with this affects whether they end up looking kindly on, Rob, the commissioner of Major League Baseball's big effort, Rob Manfred's effort to centralize local streaming opportunities and local broadcast cable, whatever opportunities within the league itself at a time when the collective bargaining agreement's about to end. And it is almost certainly going to lead to a very difficult set of renewal negotiations over whether they're going to be able to put a spending cap on stuff that all the other leagues have. And so
I don't know. I don't know if I love the rigidness and austerity of the NFL's cap.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Yeah.
If you ask me which I prefer of the two extremes, I prefer more law and order than the. And this is somebody who's goes up in a Dodger a town. I mean, I'm lifelong, but I just, you don't even enjoy it. It's just like everybody, hey, we beat you, and your money beat us, and they're not wrong. The payroll.
Well, people would say that. I go, the Toronto Blue Jays almost beat the Dodgers last year. It was a pretty close run thing. B, the Dodgers weren't the highest franchise payroll. That was the Mets, the incompetent Mets. And C, the team that almost beat them, Toronto, was the fifth highest payroll. But we've had other small market teams get in there over the years. They've had their moments, and plenty of teams have gotten into the playoffs. Talent does matter, but so does running a good organization. So there's that.
And but anyway, with the TV money, it's like it that wags the dog, unmistakably. So,
yeah. Speaking of TV money, supposedly as this podcast hits YouTube, them lawyers be talking. Paramount is sitting down with California Attorney General Rob Bonta and others to talk about possibly coming up with some sort of settlement. You ask in our newsletter, is this going to be an early and swift settlement? My thought, maybe if they're willing to do, because really I always thought the lawsuit, the antitrust lawsuit, kind of on some not sturdy ground, particularly in this regulatory climate, not on sturdy ground. It's reliant on impacts on some somewhat unexpected, fairly narrow slices of the entertainment industry that are getting smaller, like cable and the theatrical exhibition business, which is having a good year. But let's be frank, it's not going to get bigger. It's just going to charge more. And, that's how it's going to get bigger. But it's not going to be anything close to what it was even 20 years ago. So it relies on that. But maybe if he puts up a real bargaining chip like CNN, then they'll do a deal. That's my belief.
We had a great conversation last week with All Your Screens impresario Rick Ellis, and I thought you guys had a really good back and forth dialogue. Your viewpoint was that Bonta and company have all the cards, they're playing at their own pace, and if they want this thing to go to trial, it's going to go to trial. And cool your jets. Nothing's going to happen soon because, frankly, Ellison doesn't have any leverage. And I was so I was a little surprised based on that kind of backdrop that there was a negotiation that it seemed early based on that. If you
Doesn't
believe
hurt
that.
to talk. Doesn't hurt to talk. I mean, look, it costs Bonta nothing
Right.
to talk. There has been a concerted PR initiative trying to rally. You know, you've got the three biggest theater chains. You've got the mayor of LA, for at least for now. We'll see how that goes with her. You've got Gavin Newsom allegedly saying it'd be good to settle this. But no one should make a mistake to think that this, if and when this goes through, that this will save Hollywood or it will be good for Hollywood if you define good by employing more people, generating more content locally that can be better for the economy. It's not saving any of that stuff, particularly with Allison threatening to go to Tennessee, to Nashville or Austin and supposedly making moves there, though that seems dumb. It's like, what? You're going to leave two giant pieces of real estate empty? Two gigantic studio facilities? What are you going to do?
Burger went to Tennessee. You know, the pride of Southern California, one of our biggest institutions. It could happen.
In-N-Out's still here.
Well, their headquarters is in I think Memphis.
Well, so what? It's the granddaughter. She's a billionaire. She can do what she wants. Big deal.
I suppose. A lot of tragedy in that family.
I mean, the really important thing is you get off the airport, you get out of the airplane, and you go right to the In-N-Out.
Well, I gotta say, my car broke down yesterday, as I was telling you, on the 5 freeway, Central Valley.
No In-N-Outs up there. No In-N-Outs.
There was.
Hey,
the place I got towed to right there, you know, so I was able to have a, you know.
Okay, there is a God with both a sense of humor and some beneficence. Yes.
My animal style and, you know, so all good.
Yeah, crazy thing. My spouse actually said about 10 days ago, let's go to In-N-Out. I go, who are you and what did you do to my spouse? But we went, and there's one in, I guess, Venice, next to the Costco, which is like, okay, you have no trouble getting people to show up anyway, but this just makes sure that the Costco parking lot is filled even when Costco is closed.
Marino Del Rey, yeah, that's just it's not for the faint of heart.
No, but pro tip, walk in, the line's only 17 minutes long compared to the parking, the car, the drive-thru.
A great segue, Dave. With lines around the block in mind, the latest Grand Theft Auto, GTA, it's upon us, yes? What's the latest iteration?
Well, let's be clear. Lines around the block was a thing back when you had physical product. Back when you would go to GameStop and you would wait for the midnight release of your game like Diablo or Doom or something.
Or you happen to go to Robert Kennedy Jr.'s bathroom and look at the toilet seat.
I'm going to leave that one alone.
Lines around the block.
It's just a prospect I don't want to talk about. But that was the thing back in the day. And they've shifted increasingly to digital distribution of games, which is one of the reasons why apparently a disgruntled hacker broke into Take-Two Interactive / Rockstar Games, which is the actual studio, publishing what will almost certainly be the biggest entertainment release of all time, Grand Theft Auto 6, and has been dribbling out 2.5 minute video extracts from the game over the last week because he's mad that they're not even going to offer a physical copy
of
Grand Theft Auto 6. They're I don't know where they're out. They're out in the interwebs.
I'd like to get those as an embed. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's just possible there may be some anti-piracy shutdown notices going out here and there. So we could put them in there and they would last about 38 seconds and we'd probably get a strike on YouTube. But that being said, so he's mad they're not going to have a physical copy. They're going to sell the boxed version of Grand Theft Auto 6 will include a piece of paper with a download code.
Yeah.
And, you know, Sony's closed its last physical disc manufacturing facility in Germany. It's the last one they have. There's other places that do it, but like they're turning theirs into I think it's microsensors for cars. And so the physical products are going into the dust ash heap of history, apparently, with the Dodgers and Lakers local networks. But he's mad about that. So he's putting it out at the same time, just before Thursday days, exclusive first look at the extended look at the longest trailer yet and the first in a year of Grand Theft Auto 6 on Netflix, the biggest streamer in the world. So that's fascinating. So it's no longer they're only getting a 6-hour head start. We already talked about what's 6 hours worth. I mean, a game is going to get promoted, fine. They've had the older versions of Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas, a couple of other of the titles, GTA 3, on there for download and done very well. Had millions of downloads. But
Let's
just
talk
the
about
trailer,
San Andreas.
6 hours.
They turned a major tectonic fault line into a city of mayhem. Is that what happened?
Well, they wanted to have an explicit nod to something in Los Angeles, and they've got another one set in sort of not Miami,
Yeah.
and with a name it's designed Vice City, appropriate. It's set in a sort of a Miami, like not quite Miami, but kind of Miami. So that's what they do with those. And so the new one's coming out. This stuff looks pretty impressive. I mean, if you want to talk about movies getting made that are going to get seen a lot, like over and over by people, that's what's going to be happening. So this stuff's getting out there. At least 8 clips have been released already by this person who is charging, I think it's $165,000 to have a conversation with would-be advertisers to wrap around this. It doesn't matter what your stuff is, he's basically okay with whomever. I guess Altria should be like signing up or something, but to me, the important part was he's making crime pay, which is so on brand for Grand Theft Auto. It's like perfect. Like, who can complain? You're making money off of piracy. This feels very Grand Theft Auto. It's totally GTA.
I gotta say, when a hacker or a crook or any committer of malfeasance demands money, at least I know why they're doing it. It's sort of like,
right. You've got a motive that makes sense, right? As opposed to
I can work with that.
There's not a physical copy of it. It's like, dude, get over it. It's like you're gonna have the game,
right,
until they take it away. But all that stuff, I mean, that's going on. Same time, Disney.
Disney.
A little bit of, speaking of blockbusters in the holiday season, they've got this Avengers Doomsday. They had a big blowout last weekend at D23. They've got so many different superheroes involved: X-Men, Fantastic Four, Deadpool, Thor and his crew, the Wakanda people from Black Panther. I mean, it's like you don't have, like, there was a list in some story I saw of just all the people, the performers, named performers who are in one or another of those organizations. And it's like 8 lines long. It's exhausting to read it. It's like all of IMDb.
I'm going to go just a very short, I was dropping my kid up in Berkeley this week, and I always hang out with him for a day and watch movies with him. And there was a time when I'd have to watch Avengers or something again for the 12th time.
Right.
In game.
Right.
And he wanted to see The Social Network. He'd never seen it. He liked it. And he had to see Dunkirk because he's on a Chris Nolan bender. And this is a young guy, he majors in English. He likes stories, and he's starting to, he's in his early 20s. His film taste started developing a little bit, and he's catching up a little bit on some history. And I respect that. But it also tells me his tastes are changing, and maybe that sort of Gen Z sweet spot that led to all that largesse and those massive box office numbers for those Marvel movies is starting to grow up and maybe moderate its taste a little bit. I mean,
it certainly there's some
just making a shitload of money, but I don't know.
Well, I think there was definitely fatigue after Endgame proved not to be the end game with all the. I mean, they squeezed that golden goose as hard as they could in the Iger and late Iger, early Chapek era. And then they finally said, maybe this is a bit much. 37 Marvel movies. So a bunch of the ones in recent times have not done well. A couple of them have done okay. This is a big one. It's the Russo brothers again, who did Endgame and did the one before Endgame and did a couple of Captain Americas and probably generated $5 billion in box office on those 4 films. So they know how to make a movie that's popular, but this one has Robert Downey coming back wearing a different metal mask. He's Dr. Doom. You've got all those players. It feels you watch the trailers and people go, is there a story here? Or is it just a lot of cameos of superheroes? Like it's a big convention of superheroes plus Downey back from his Iron Man death to be Doom. And so it'll be interesting to see if this thing gets beyond its core audience of hardcore Marvel people, because it's also coming out the same day as Dune with an N 3, which is my choice for a way to spend my December 18th.
We've talked about the conflict before here.
Yeah. It's going to be a very overstuffed set of theaters.
I'm going to short, maybe not Dune.
Dune, that audience was Zendaya and Tom Holland and Timothée Chalamet and Frank Herbert, the writer of the original stories.
Chalamet fatigue.
And Denis Villeneuve, who's an extraordinary artist, who's also a very big commercial director.
So
that's a pretty good combo.
I'm gonna short both of them.
Okay. That's what you and Kalshi, you guys get on it. Hey, speaking of which, do you know English Premier League launched this weekend? The English Premier League voluntarily, the members decided they will no longer have betting organizations for their name sponsors on their shirts. And that affected like 8 of the 20 teams, 2 of which still don't have new shirt sponsors. I think one of them is Chelsea, which is owned by an American. I was fascinated by that. And God knows the Brits have had sports betting for a lot longer than the U.S. has. And the U.S. is still on a state-by-state basis, except with Kalshi Poly Market and the other prediction markets. So I love the fact that they did that. I thought that was really a big step. And now it's all fintech and technology and stuff like that are stepping up with these big, expensive sponsorships for
all summer. We've had the opportunity to, in our ad network, to feature Kalshi, and we've rejected it. It just says something, I don't know, it's just not a great brand message, I feel like, to be associated with. There's so much controversy.
Yeah, you're not going to put a bet down on that one. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I
know.
People can do their stuff, but I think its impacts on sports, on the motivations. I mean, we've already seen a bunch of athletes screw up their entire careers and get thrown out. The leagues keep trying to say, oh, we're running a clean shop here and all that, but it is infinitely, endlessly corrupting.
So what do you think about Barry Weiss's final 60 minutes of restaffing? She's got this rotating cast of Jerry Seinfeld, John Cleese, and Stephen A. Smith, who are going to do these, I guess, end of segment or end of show segments that are not too unlike Andy Rooney.
Yeah.
Seinfeld is kind of virulently anti-Palestine movement, anti-desert to the sea guy. Stephen A. Smith is kind of a MAGA blowhard these days.
No, he's not MAGA. He's going to run as a Democrat for president, probably.
He doesn't know. I mean, a lot of performers get into
this. They think they should run for president, and they're wrong. But it turns out one of them who thought he should run for president, well, it kind of worked out for him. He was also wrong, but he won twice and lost once. Whether he does it or
Reagan,
not.
I'm not a fan, and I think he did.
I was thinking about Donald Trump, but also Reagan.
I know I'm going
won twice.
He had ran a bunch of Hollywood guilds. He had been governor of California.
He ran one guild. He was president of SAG back in the day. and he was a General Electric spokesman. He was
And
famously on board as SAG was running away from the communists during the red baiting era, and then he
I
was at
don't mean to. I'm
GE.
just saying he had experience in running this thing called government, and since
Yeah,
then it's gone downhill.
so he'd been a governor. He'd been a governor of California, and effective enough for what he was. Yeah.
Right. If you want to consider our homeless crisis, that is a direct offshoot of him just creaming the mental health institutions back in the '60s. Well,
No, that was actually it was actually in the 80s when he was president, and they deinstitutionalized thousands and
it
thousands of people.
started when he was governor of California, though.
Hmm.
I know that for a fact. But what I'm saying is, have you listened to Stephen A. Smith? I get his job is to have a take. That's the business. But man,
He does his job. He has takes.
I know, but when he gets outside of sports, he's just so lost, and it's embarrassing.
Well, I think it's an interesting choice. John Cleese, beloved Monty Python co-founder, one of six back in the day, has evolved, shifted to becoming still funny, but pretty conservative. So in that regard, he feels Weisian, as it were.
right.
And, Seinfeld, good Jewish boy from New York, is certainly going to be pro-Israel. Again, very Weisian in his take on things, presumably more liberal. So she's triangulating around the corners of what she cares about. Two of them are funny. One of them is less funny, but and I think more polarizing. Kind of, Rooney used to be parody worthy because he would always rant about something that was often pretty small,
Right.
right? And he was a grumpy old man, made grumpier. I think he grew out extra eyebrows to look bushier.
Yeah, I used to
And
watch.
as
That's
he
when I
was,
tuned in. I was a kid, and he'd like, what are these
yeah.
scissors? And he'd bring out like 12 pairs.
Let me just talk about socks. People wear socks like all the time. Fine, I'm okay with socks. But then they get crazy with their socks, What's the world coming to with purple socks? I don't understand. He would go from there. That kind of stuff.
So I see
I'm pro sock
Seinfeld.
too, by the way. Just want to say.
Seinfeld would be, I guess, good at that. I mean, that's kind of his.
Maybe. I mean, is he going to be doing comedy? Is he going to be observational humor? Again, Cleese can be very funny. He's done a lot of stuff in more recent years where he is consulting with corporations, going to their corporate retreat and talking about dumbass things corporations do and better operations and stuff like that. So there's like a component of that that's sort of interesting. But he's gotten more conservative. Again, this sort of fits into Barry's triangulation. So
I'm not like a shut up and dribble guy. I mean, I obviously, like the NBA, Stephen A. Smith has a long history as a journalist. He's covered.
He started the Philadelphia Daily News, I think.
He knows it, and
yeah.
comedians become leaders of nations, and commentators can branch out. But I just listening to him when he does it for me is like nails on a chalkboard because some of the stuff he talks about, I know
very
it.
polarizing.
I know he just does. I know it. I think I know it better than he does. And he's out there on national platform on ESPN shaping opinions, and it's dangerous.
Right. Right. I think it's interesting that ESPN's he's the guy they pay more to than anybody but possibly Pat McAfee, who got a $60 million deal, but he's making like 30. I think he's making 35 million a year. And then he also has like a $20 million XM Sirius gig. Or Spotify, I can't remember which one. So he's doing fine, doing just fine. There's a whole lot of folks that can't stand him. Probably good that he's only going to be in a rotation. I really haven't cared much about 60 Minutes for a very long time. It's fine, but the time they get to a lot of their stuff, many of their stories, it's like, no, I kind of know that story because I've been following it for a long time. I'm not learning a lot new. You've got some window into some personal component of it. Great. That's TV. I just don't, I never found it that elevating for me, but they do what they do at a very high level. They've been able to do it for a long time. Now it's going to be something different under Barry. it feels like she's got to do some more staffing up, though. It feels like they're still a little light on their bodies based on what they sent out the door and what they've brought in.
Light on viewers is what they are. And
yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think if she does for 60 Minutes what she's already done for CBS Evening News, they're doomed because, I mean, Dokapil's fine, but their ratings have only gone south. So 60 Minutes was top 10, top 7, whatever it was last year. And now we'll see what she's wrought because the numbers are the numbers. She hasn't proven to be an effective leader of people, even if she's good at marshaling lots of interesting ideas that are heterodox and sometimes thought-provoking, which I'm all for. But she hasn't really pulled it off. So
I don't know if you read this, shifting over back to Paramount. Chris Aronson, who back in the day, he's worked for a few studios. He's, film distribution guy. And he ran Paramount's operation up until Ellison took it over last year. And he's suing for wrongful termination for $4 billion. And kind of rooting for him. I covered box office for, should have a short, strange trip at the Wrap 15 years ago. And he was one of the straight shooters, easy to deal with, wouldn't always give you what you want, but you didn't feel like you were getting played in favor of Nikki Fink or something. He just, that's my narrow spectrum of interaction, but I always liked him. So I want to see him treated well. Conversely, Katie Morton Kelly was head of PR at Paramount at the time, and we could get no love at the Wrap. So you were stuck between Sharon Waxman and Katie Morton Kelly. Get the story, and Katie wouldn't return your emails, and so it was a tough row. I guess she's a Netflix just hired her out. She had worked for
Warner now. Well, for now,
karma is hard to come by on Melrose. Is my point to that. But they do have the keeper rules and all the Netflix propaganda that goes out about how it's a special place that, we have a no assholes rule here, written by the asshole.
Yeah, I actually saw a piece, an interview with Reed Hastings, who said that, the thing you're talking about with the keeper rule, which means that basically there's a 360 review of each employee, I think annually. And basically part of it is based on where we are now, is this person the right person for this job now? Maybe they were right 3 years ago. Are they still right? That's basically the thinking. And it came out of 2007, 2008, when the company was getting hammered because of the global financial crisis. They really this was before they had started streaming, and they really are getting killed and hadn't really quite made the transition.
So they rewrote the social contract of employer-employee, basically.
Well, what they did was lay off a third of their employees, and he had a good point. He said, "Never call your company a family because you're not going to lay off 2 of your kids. You might think about it, but you're not.
Well, that's
you're not laying off 2 of your kids, but when you lay off a third of your employees, that is not a family. That is a business." And he said, and it didn't hurt us. And then it was, maybe we should lay off a third of our employees every year. And it's like, no, let's not get crazy here. But let's do this thing where we're evaluating whether we keep them. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It's a pretty rugged thing, but there's no denying that Netflix has been enormously successful. If you'd bought shares in 2007, you'd be doing okay right now. As it is, their shares have been recovering.
Of corporate leaders like Reed Hastings into folks who are directly motivated and tied to the stock performance,
right,
has changed everything. And you could say that it's good for the company, but there were a lot of effective, good companies like General Motors back in the 50s when there was a social contract and a pension, and we said we're best served by propping up our end of the workforce and giving stable jobs to people who've moved here and built their lives around having somebody work at this company. And we might be going through a stretch where their cost per unit or value per unit or whatever the fuck they measure it by is lower than it had been or will be. It may be dipping, ebbing, whatever, but we'll stick with it because it's part of the social contract that makes capitalism work. The market is stable. Everybody's working. They can afford the products that we manufacture. It fucking worked. And we can talk about all we want to about how these sort of austere, humanless protocols for maximizing the productivity and value of workers is good for companies and the sharp leaders that deploy these schemes. But I don't like it.
I don't know that I would necessarily point to General Motors 75 years ago as the plus ultra of the social contract between employer
I
and
just pulled one out of my
employee.
ass.
Because I will point to General Motors in the 70s and the fact that they opened the door for Japanese companies like Toyota, who had a commitment to quality, an investment in quality and better management, and built reliable cars for a much better price, and also opened a bunch of stuff in the South, a bunch of plants in the South that continue to put out cars in America that sell very well. And I know you've had a little interaction with reliability. Toyota's still hits it out of the park with highly reliable vehicles.
Like
You know,
Prius and a Santa Fe.
there you go. Well, Santa Fe's not theirs, but
What I'm saying is I own the Korean counterpart, and
yeah,
I was happier with the Toyota product.
Yeah. So I mean, it is interesting to talk about that, but it is a very different economy from back then.
You start
much
mixing
else.
in global. What you're saying does make sense, and it's a good rebuttal, and it's hard to respond to that. But I think globalism changed everything, and sort of it's not a clean argument.
It did. But the other thing is, you're talking about a tangible physical good,
right?
Like a car that runs or doesn't, versus movies, which, by the way, since the 1950s aren't made the same way either. It's a bunch of free agents who come together for 6 months or a year or 2 years to make a specialized, highly valuable product that may or may not succeed in the market. And then they break up and go on to the next thing. There are people that work at the studios, and soon, when presumably the Warner Brothers Paramount deal gets wrapped up either next week or next April, soon there will be fewer of them, probably permanently. And that sucks for those people a lot. And it sucks for Los Angeles a lot. I don't actually understand why Karen Bass, who has not shown herself to be an adequate mayor of Los Angeles with the fire response that she did, but has said that let this deal go through, don't let it sit out there, because she's going to have a lot of constituents who are not going to be employed. They're going to be brushing up their resumes or their cosmetology licenses, because that's what's going to be left after David Ellison cuts a whole bunch of stuff to try to get his debt levels down to something that approaches something that Standard & Poor's will not mock him for.
That's sort of, you mentioned Karen Bass. It sort of leads into one last thing I wanted to bring up, since we're kind of covering some things that have been on our mind. Now, I don't know what the career advancement goal is to leave town in January and travel abroad, but I do know that if I was Karen Bass and I was doing that, a blowtorch Santa Ana condition in January wouldn't have been something that was on my mind. So I kind of acquit her for that decision. I feel like a lot of this stuff is driven by the California Post, which seems to be sort of succeeding in its quest to drive the conversation around Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, progressive lifestyle, politics, culture, etc. Sort of shake it up and sort of inject the spin that this sort of effete, soft Southern California liberal culture needs from Rupert at a time when the Los Angeles Times is just absolutely just irrelevant. It feels like
defanged, as it were. I don't know that I'd attribute much. I mean, I'd love to see what the actual readership numbers are.
I was going to write about it. It's hard to come by.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. I mean, just like the Post, which is losing millions of the New York Post, which is losing millions of dollars every year, but is propped up by Rupert because he likes a megaphone. That's not the Wall Street Journal talking to the business community. He likes
Right,
a
it's hard to measure
megaphone
the
to,
power of that. It feels anecdotal, and it
yeah.
is anecdotal. Just the discussion around Jeannie Buss and the Lakers, it feels like it's being driven by whenever I see a quote or a break, it's driven by the Post. It seems like they are making it dent. Without seeing numbers, it just feels like as a news consumer, I see a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, I would merely suggest that you like the rest of us have a news diet that is shaped by the algorithms and what's getting surfaced and the things that you see and the things that you look at and the things that you prefer. And there's an objective, it's X, and then there's the subjective, this is what I see a lot of. And what's interesting, of course, is to think about what's really true
I'm trying to put
and
myself in
what's
a general
what
diet,
you
but
see.
I do
Because
diet.
I don't see the California Post popping up in my feeds that much, and I'm slightly more centrist than you are, I suggest.
Maybe there's a proletariat
Um,
eating inside of you.
yeah, you're in touch with the working man. I haven't had a callus on my hand since college when I was working summers as a carpenter and
I
landscaper.
yeah, I mean it's like I said, I don't have any it's just feeling based and those things are hard to
Feelings are not facts.
that's true. Agree.
But your perspective is fine and it's not invalid, and in fact we're all getting a diet of news that is different from everybody else, and the overlaps are less than they've ever been. You know, when Rupert's gone at 167 or whenever it is, we'll see what happens to the California Post and the New York Post. Does Lachlan, who lives in Australia, give a flip? I'll be interested to see whether this new movie that I will see at the Venice Film Festival, Ink, which is based on a celebrated play about when Rupert bought, I think, the Mail, maybe in the Mirror, one of the tabloids in England. It was his
Yeah.
first step really out of Australian journalism when he bought that and the transformation that went on there. I read a really interesting column from the Australian, a newspaper in Australia, weirdly enough, talking about, Rupert's presence is still everywhere in Australia, but the publications he inherited from his dad and the other ones he acquired no longer are quite the same. They still have a big impact in Australian politics, but it's like the publications themselves are just ghosts of their former selves, like so many other newspapers around the world. So, like, where does that all go? News Corp is less about newspapers
So this is
and more about
a
stuff.
biopic with actors and not a documentary.
Well, it's a play
Right.
turned into a movie
Right.
with a pretty good cast. I think Lance Oppenheim directs it. Robert Pattinson is involved as one of the stars. And I think it's mostly a two-hander because of the play background between the person. I think Pattinson plays the editor. I don't know who plays Rupert. But anyway, it should be a fun thing, and I hope to be partaking of it next week.
Yeah, something
So,
else. Just make a connection here because you're talking about actors, and you mentioned Mark Ruffalo butting
yeah,
heads with David Ellison. I didn't realize that he's doing Task, which is sort of he plays a FBI division chief from Philadelphia. Was on one season. It just got renewed by HBO for a
yeah.
second season last month. So
And he'll continue to play that until his character gets shot in the last
you're
episode and
probably
dies.
yeah. So
Shot by, let's just be frank, a Israel hating um, lefty activist.
Mr. Ellison has some notes.
Yes. And these are really big notes. So film
All right.
accordingly.
So let's get out of here. I'm going to be at
Okay.
at the Skirball Center here in Los Angeles, the DEG event, and Our partners
But before that,
40 under 40. We're bantering around. I was going to include you on this. We're going to have 17 over 50. That's our plan. It's an arbitrary number whose time has come, but we're going to get into this whole.
I wanted to do 17 over 57 because that just has a better ring.
That is,
but you want to be inclusive, so let's make it 17 over 47 and a half.
We'll figure it out. But like this age,
47 years, 6 months, 3 days, and 12 hours. If you're older than that, you're in.
This age's circle jerk ends now. We fight back starting today. So
it's a new circle jerk. That's great. Everybody should be looking forward to that.
I think they will. I think there's certain older
can't beat it.
The next TMT audience that'll definitely appreciate our us too.
Well, either the next TMT audience or the AARP audience. I'm not sure which. But
hey, if they advertise, fuck it, let them in.
Yeah, biggest retiree political action group in America. So there you go. All right, fine. So we got that. We got this panel we're going to be running with. The
panel.
Yeah,
the panel.
I'll be hosting a conversation. You're going to tell me who with. I'm just talent. I just show up and smile and ask.
We have Jeff
penetrating questions.
Longtime distribution executive. I knew him when he was distributing DVDs. He works for Kevin Hart's Heartbeat. He's the head of distribution there, chief distribution officer. We've got Jeff Clark, who, in addition to Free Live Sports, is involved in a lot of different streaming businesses and a real streaming distribution thinker. I always enjoy talking to him. Kind of linchpin by our sponsorship guests, Lucas Bertrand, founder and CEO of Looper Insights.
Lucas, yeah.
We work with him a lot.
Lucas is good.
The digital shelf, thinking of the video business, not so much virtually, but as a physical thing where you have to get visibility in front of the customer and on TVOS platforms, interfaces of all kinds, digital stores. So that's, we've talked about that before, but we're going to talk about specifically doing this in the age of AI, how AI helps you and can provide for you and the limits.
If they don't understand, if AI doesn't get you, doesn't see you, you are not going to exist in the generative optimization engine era. GOE, not GEO. Generative engine optimization. We're moving past SEO to GEO. What does that mean for merchandising, streaming properties, and platforms going forward? And that's a really important set of questions. And it's not just in streaming, it's in a whole bunch of businesses, right? I mean, this is so far beyond just what Hollywood does. It's just that Hollywood's got to pay attention to this because people are looking to buy their wares all the time and you're in competition with everything else. It's like if you're Clorox, people are going to just look for Clorox bleach. That's not going to change and AI doesn't need to know about it. But if you're one of 6 movies that's coming out in the next 3 weeks in theaters and you don't properly optimize.
As a baseball player, and I prefer OxyClean over Clorox.
Go with God.
Those OxyClean themes, that was always a challenge. But I won't go there. But I will say this. It's Wednesday, 2:15 or 2:10 East Coast time, 11:10 West Coast time. David over here is going to be moderating. It's going to be, FOMO is thrown around a lot, fear of missing out. And I think a lot of people, it's kind of, there's a hysteria of it. But I think, watching it archived in the newsletter, on Media Play News, I think that's one way to experience it. I mean, you can catch up, but being there live when this is happening, I mean, I don't know, maybe you'll have grandkids, maybe you won't, but it's a story that
you want to say you were there.
Yeah.
And when you're on your deathbed, you want to say, I was there when David hosted that panel.
And talk about a conversation stopper. The holidays come, you're with friends and family or people you want to impress. And you just mention the, visibility in the AI panel. Oh yeah, I saw that live. What?
I was there. It was bigger than Woodstock.
Yeah,
and less muddy.
we're all craving connection and community.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You'll find it here. We promise. We guarantee
Promise. All right.
it.
Well, with that, we are going to send you all off onto your day, and we will see you middle of the week, no doubt, for our fantastic panel and other conversations. This is David Bloom, co-founder of Next TMT, here with my co-founder, Daniel Frankel. We do a newsletter twice a week, Next TMT, which you can get at nexttm, as in media, t.com, nexttmt.com. And this here podcast, Next TMT Talks, which you can get on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Give us some love back. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Like comments, like hearing you're listening. Love you guys. Thanks for everything. We will see you soon. Over and